Hello, data folks. Thanks for joining me again on this channel for data and IT professionals. In our previous videos, we explored different types of keys used in relational and dimensional data modeling. In this video, we're going to tackle yet another important concept in relational database design: many-to-many relationships. We'll first understand what a many-to-many relationship really means, why it can create problems if not modeled properly, and then we'll see how bridge tables, also known as junction tables, help us solve this problem in a clean and scalable way. All right, let's jump straight into it. To understand many-to-many relationships, let's take a very practical enterprise example. Imagine an automobile spare parts retailer that procures vehicle parts from multiple suppliers and sells them directly to end customers through its retail store. Products like brake pads, air filters, spark plugs, suspension springs, and clutch plates can be sourced from different suppliers. Now think carefully about the relationship here. One supplier can supply multiple automobile parts. At the same time, one automobile part can also be supplied by multiple suppliers. This creates what we call a many-to-many relationship, because many suppliers can relate to many products. Now, conceptually, this sounds very straightforward. But relational databases are not designed to handle many-to-many relationships. This is because they are fundamentally built around primary key and foreign key relationships, which naturally represent one-to-many structures. Let's try connecting the product table and the supplier table directly and see what kind of modeling problems this creates. Suppose we try to store multiple supplier IDs inside the product table. For example, a brake pad is supplied by supplier 101, supplier 205, and supplier 309. Now we're trying to store multiple values inside a single column. But this breaks basic principles of normalization and makes filtering, joining, and indexing extremely inefficient. Now let's try another workaround. Instead of storing multiple values in one column, we create multiple rows for the same product, one row per supplier. So brake pad appears multiple times, once for each supplier. At first, this looks like it solves the problem. But now the same product is duplicated across multiple rows, and this redundant data creates update anomalies. And when this duplicated structure is connected to fact tables and analytical systems, it can lead to overcounting and incorrect business metrics during reporting. Now, let's apply the same idea to the supplier table. If we store multiple product IDs in a single column, we break normalization. And if we create multiple rows, we duplicate supplier data, which again leads to reporting and analytical issues. So the same problem persists in both directions, whether we start from product or supplier. This clearly shows that we need a different approach. Instead of trying to handle this many-to-many relationship directly between these two tables and creating more issues, we introduce a new table in between. This is what we call a junction table, often referred to as a bridge table or associative table in database design. This table does not store product details or supplier details. Those continue to remain in their respective tables. Instead, this new table contains the foreign keys referencing both product and supplier. Now let's understand what these bridge table rows actually mean. The first set of rows shows that product ID P001, which corresponds to brake pad, is supplied by 3 different suppliers. From the supplier table, we can see that these suppliers are Metro suppliers, Vertex Auto, and National Spares. Similarly, we can see that air filter is supplied by Vertex Auto, National Spares, and Keystone Spares, and so on for the remaining products. So, each row in this table represents one valid product-supplier relationship. Generally, bridge tables store the keys from both tables. However, in real enterprise systems, bridge tables are not always limited to just keys. It can also store attributes associated with a specific product-supplier combination. For example, the price offered by a supplier for a specific product, or the lead time required for that supplier to deliver that product, or the minimum order quantity defined for that combination. These attributes do not belong to the product alone or the supplier alone. They belong to the product-supplier relationship itself, and that's why they are stored in the bridge table. Some of you may now argue that Why not simply bring all product and supplier details into the bridge table itself and eliminate the separate product and supplier tables altogether? At first glance, this may seem like the better choice. However, this would introduce massive data redundancy. The same product details would be repeated for every supplier relationship, and the same supplier details would also be repeated for every product relationship. This not only increases storage unnecessarily, but also creates maintenance and consistency problems. For example, if a supplier name changes, that update would need to be applied across multiple rows. Similarly, if a product details changes, every duplicated occurrence would also need to be updated. This leads to update anomalies and inconsistent reporting. So in a properly normalized relational model, product and supplier continue to remain as separate entities, while the bridge table only stores the relationship and relationship-specific attributes between them. This successfully breaks the many-to-many relationship into two one-to-many relationships. Product-to-product supplier bridge becomes one-to-many. Supplier-to-product supplier bridge also becomes one-to-many. This approach aligns with relational database design principles and makes relationships easier to manage, query, and maintain. From an analytical modeling perspective, surrogate keys are typically used to establish consistent relationships between tables. Here we can see we have now established a bridge table using surrogate keys from both product and supplier. Another important point is that a fact table can connect to a product dimension, a supplier dimension, or a product-supplier bridge table, depending on the use case and the grain of the fact table. For use cases such as total sales by product or top-selling product insights, the fact table typically connects directly to the product dimension. Similarly, for supplier-focused analysis, such as supplier performance tracking or cost analysis, the fact table connects directly to the supplier dimension. On the other hand, when the analysis is centered around product-supplier relationships, such as identifying which suppliers provide which products or comparing supplier pricing per product, the fact table connects to the product-supplier bridge table, which can be further joined with the product and supplier dimensions to retrieve additional attributes. That's all for today. If you found this helpful, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. And as always, please share this with your network. It really helps us bring more useful videos your way. Thanks for watching.